In 1978, two friends named Ben and Jerry opened the doors of their very first scoop shop. Their beginning was our beginning, and right from the get-go, our goals were simple: to make the best ice cream possible, use our business to do good, and have fun. Because if it's not fun, why do it? Our euphoric flavors, packed with generous chunks and swirls, are made using the best ingredients we can ethically source. From fair trade growers, local dairy farmers, and a bakery that changes lives. We don't always voice what's popular or easy, but we always speak up for what we all believe in. That love is love, the earth is worth protecting, and success tastes sweeter when everyone benefits. Dig it? Then dig in. Maybe even bite off more than you can chew. Let's stand up and be heard. And let's have fun doing it, because it's pretty amazing the problems we can lick when we're all in this together.
Yes, that is indeed Ben & Jerry's, a company we've all grown to love, and a company whose CEO, Matthew McCarthy, is being honored today with the Botwinick Prize. Good evening, everyone. My name is Modupe Akinola, and I'm a management professor at Columbia Business School. And I'm also the director of the Sanford C. Bernstein Company Center for Leadership and Ethics. So thank you for joining us, because you are in for a treat, and I mean that both literally and also figuratively. So what is this Botwinick Prize that you're here to see bestowed upon our special guest? This prize was established by Bessie and Benjamin Botwinick. Benjamin Botwinick was a class of 26, that would be 1926 CBS grad, very well-respected CPA at the Benjamin Botwinick and Company, and also founder, both of them founded the Botwinick Wolfenson Foundation. And so who does this prize get awarded to? An individual or representative of a business organization exemplifying the highest standard of professional and ethical conduct, as well as ethical decision-making and leadership. And so there have been many wonderful past recipients of the Botwinick Prize, people who have stood up for what they believed in and made huge differences in their companies from a purpose standpoint and also from a profit standpoint. And many of them are really ahead of their time. So I want to recognize and acknowledge former recipients of this prize. Also want to recognize the Botwinick Wolfenson family. Bessie and Benjamin Botwinick are no longer with us, but the support of their family, when I say it's been unwavering, I really mean it. This includes their son, Edward Botwinick, his spouse, Vicki Brown, and numerous grandchildren, some of whom are with us tonight. So thank you all for joining and for your continued support. But I do have to also make sure that we start with taking a moment to honor Elaine Wolfenson, who was the daughter of Bessie and Benjamin Botwinick, who passed away last year. And I can't tell you how much of a supporter Elaine was of this prize. I really used to love seeing her at this annual gathering, hearing how much the prize meant to her and her family, and hearing more about her parents' legacy. Not only would she come here annually, but she was also a proud alum of Teachers College, of Columbia's Teachers College, and also a trustee. So we will and continue to miss Elaine's spirit and her passion for making this world a better place. And we are dedicating the 2021 Botwinick Prize to her. And I ask that you join me in a moment of silence in her honor. Thank you very much for that. So who decides who is going to win the Botwinick Prize, this coveted prize? This year's nominating committee included students, faculty, alumni, members of the Botwinick Wolfenson family, and the dean's office. And they unanimously agreed that Matthew McCarthy's lifelong pursuit and commitment to ethical leadership and social impact made him incredibly worthy of this prize. He joined Ben & Jerry's in 2018 And since then, he has accelerated the company's global programs in social justice, refugee and immigrant rights, environmental and agricultural sustainability. Clearly, he has expanded the brand well beyond its yummy ice cream flavors. Many would say that Matthew is a rule breaker, and he shows how business can be a force for good in the world. He sees his role as steering a global team of aspiring activists. And from this, it's pretty clear that Matthew exemplifies a proactive approach to leadership and ethics. And he promotes a very clear understanding of the importance of giving voice and energy to causes that can lead us all to thrive personally and economically. So it is such an honor to virtually present the Botwinick Prize to Mr. Matthew McCarthy, CEO of Ben & Jerry's. Congratulations, Matthew. I am
Thank you,
going to
Madupe.
turn it over to you now.
Thank you very much, Madupe. You set a very high bar, and it's good to see you. And it's really a treat to be here with everybody. My comments will be brief, but at first I want to give a big shout out of thank you, a huge thank you to Columbia University, to the Bernstein Center, to the staff, alumni, the students, faculty, and of course the Botwinick family, the Botwinick Wolfenson family, and all the staff who've worked on this. This is a big deal for me personally, but also for my team. I don't put a ton of stock in industry awards and things like that. I take them with a bit of a grain of salt, but this one is a special one. This is a big deal. And I think for me personally, it's a big deal because the topic of business ethics, operating your organization, your business, your company ethically, I've come to find, and I believe strongly, is at the heart of whether your company is even going to survive, let alone thrive. We're in a moment of hyper transparency, and that's a good thing. And some businesses will thrive and some won't make it. And business ethics is very much at the heart of that. And I've come to learn that, and I see that every day, regardless of the business that you're in. This is also recognition. I'm the guy that gets to have his name on the award, but the reality is this is a recognition for the entire Ben & Jerry's family. And the fact of the matter is I wouldn't be getting this recognition if it weren't made possible by all the tireless work of my teammates around the world and in our family. Their vision, the commitment of our team around the world to our shared values, their hard work, their creativity, and their own rule breaking is what's recognized here tonight as well. And I also want to give a shout out to all the people in the Ben & Jerry's family. So I talk about people both that are within our company, but also the people that are in our extended family or our value network, from our farmers and all the farm workers who help supply the things that we make ice cream with, to all the folks in our manufacturing teams who come to work every single day here and in other parts of the world making the Ben & Jerry's ice cream every single day. All of our scoop shop owners, all of our franchisees that are in the joy business every day, and all of our scoopers, they are also our frontline workers, bringing joy to our fans every single day. We've got teammates for Ben & Jerry's across over 30 countries now, and also our NGO partners. So much of the work that we do in what we call our social mission space is really powered by, enabled by our partners in the civil society space, people who are the experts in the grassroots organizations, in civil rights, in social and climate justice spaces. We couldn't do what we do at Ben & Jerry's without them. And obviously, there's a few other folks I want to give a shout out of thanks to. We have an independent board of directors at Ben & Jerry's that was established by Jerry and Ben over 20 years ago. And our independent board of directors is somewhat unique. Their remit is to help ensure, preserve, and protect the things that we try to do every day. And the independent board helps guide us and keep us on track as we go forward. Certainly, I gave a shout out of thanks to Jerry and to Ben because a prize for Ben and Jerry's, a prize for me, or a prize for the Ben and Jerry's family is certainly a prize for and a recognition for their vision that we try to carry on and live up to. And certainly a big thanks to all those folks who have helped me get where I am today. My wife, Lisa, my mom and my dad, Lisa's dad, my brothers and my sisters, and all of my friends and colleagues, both at Ben and Jerry's, at Unilever, and all the way back to when I was a kid. Grateful for the support and the encouragement, and sometimes kick in the pants that I get from the people that support me. And I suppose that the last thing I would say here, and this hopefully will be a lead into our Q&A, Modupe, is this is not only a moment for maybe some celebration and some recognition that I and my team are grateful for, but also this is a moment of urgency. And I'm speaking specifically to the students. When you think about business ethics, think about some of the challenges that we're facing in our communities around the world, not only here in the United States, but everywhere around the world. Business ethics is linked directly to justice. And if something is unjust, it is unethical by design, by definition, as far as you ask me. And so we are in the urgency business. We're not just in the business business. And I really want to encourage all the business students to make it a priority. Business ethics is not just how you do your business. As I mentioned at the beginning, it is central to the definition of the business that you're in. It's not just a course on not getting in trouble with the law or getting called out in a PR scandal, but business ethics is directly related to justice. And it's critical that business leaders be directly involved in solving the biggest challenges that we have in our communities here and around the world. So I'm thrilled to be here tonight on behalf of the Ben & Jerry's family. And thank you, Modupe and team.
Well, thank you, Matthew, for being here, for accepting the award, and for all the things that we are about to dig into. Because you already started. You just like, you know what? Let me end my speech by just, going there. So before we get started with our talking about some of these topics we discussed, I want to encourage everybody to put questions in the Q&A box. And as a fun reminder, I told you that this would be a treat literally and figuratively. The first 5 questions chosen during the Q&A session will win a free pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream, courtesy of Matthew. So put in those questions and make sure they're good. We're going to only choose good ones so that you're very deserving of your free ice cream. Okay, Matthew. So many students are on here aspiring to be CEOs. They will be CEOs. They're excited about being CEOs and on leadership teams. And you are one. And I'm sure they're curious, how did you get there? Like, what was your path to CEO?
That's a long one. I'll try to make it brief. I didn't, when I got out of undergraduate, I went to UMass Amherst, and I really didn't know what the heck I wanted to do. I was a bit directionless, to be blunt. I was a liberal arts student and liked the things I was studying, but I didn't have any sort of inkling that business was the direction I was going to go. And I'd always worked in the food service industry. So always had jobs when I was a kid. Scooped ice cream one summer. That was a lot of fun. Had no idea decades later that I'd be in the ice cream business. But I was always in and around the food business, and was really fortunate to work with my dad. My dad worked in a big company, and he left that to really run his own smaller company. And I was a teenager at the time, so going to work with him was really where I cut my teeth on what an entrepreneurial business is all about. And even though I later went on to a larger company that got bought by a multi-billion-dollar company that's global, I tried to hold on to a lot of those lessons around entrepreneurialism and the importance of taking personal responsibility for the stuff that you're doing. And then as further I went in business, I just love the marketing side of things. I love the consumer side of things. In hindsight, I'm really curious about why we humans do the stuff that we do, and particularly as it relates to commerce. And so I went off and found my way into Best Foods, and which later got bought by Unilever. And so I've been with Unilever for almost 24 years, working in a range of brands and businesses in the CPG, consumer packaged goods world, big brands and small brands and everyday brands. And I've really loved that. I've really relished that opportunity to be in business and be where your day job is to stay connected to the people that you serve in some way, and your ability to be effective as a business person in growing your business and having a positive impact is linked directly to the consumer. And that's one of the things I like about fast moving consumer goods is the minute you're not relevant, you know it. And so you're kind of always on the edge and wanting to serve your consumers and, compete. And then as I progressed through the marketing side of things, the general management piece was always there. I think I kind of caught the bug when I was working with my dad, but just always wanting to progress towards more of an overview of a business. I worked in sales for a number of years before I went into marketing, and I absolutely loved it. And a lot of my career work was through lateral moves. And in fact, I know I probably could have gone vertically faster if I hadn't taken so many lateral moves, but I had a little bit of a sense of where I wanted to go, and taking those lateral moves into jobs where I wasn't the expert, where I had a steeper learning curve, where I could challenge myself, really kind of gathered steam, and I think helped me get where I am today. And I think the other thing is that things don't always make sense when you're going forward, but when you arrive at a location and you look backwards, things make a bit of sense. Probably 10 or maybe 12 years ago, I just started getting much, much more interested in the sustainability and the impact side of the business, in addition to growing brands and growing businesses. And that really started with sustainability, environmental sustainability. And the more I really opened my eyes to the opportunity and the urgent need for businesses to take responsibility for their externalities, not only was that a good thing for communities, people, the planet, but also was becoming more central to brand identity and my ability to compete. And so that intersection between what you stand for and what you do, a little bit to I alluded earlier, just grew for me. And so while I love growing businesses, and I love, and I've loved working for Unilever over the years, I was also getting hungrier for leveraging the business to do more things. And when you have the privilege of working on some large businesses or some large brands, small changes can have a big impact. Big changes can have an enormous impact. And so the opportunity to drive change, contrary to what some people think, which is like, is it profit or is it purpose? I think that's actually a ridiculous and outmoded comparison that needs to be, frankly, challenged. And I just kept progressing in a way where businesses that were more purpose-oriented, businesses that were really bringing their values forward, just were more and more attractive to me. And about 3 years ago, I found myself with an opportunity to join Ben & Jerry's, and it's super thrilling. I never would have imagined, if you talked to me 10 years old when I grew up in Massachusetts, that I'd work for Ben & Jerry's. I'd say you're crazy, but it's a tremendous privilege and an honor to be part of what is as much an experiment in business as a company.
It's fascinating because I love the idea that you found yourself in an organization where you could make lateral moves. That was big, right? Because sometimes people are kind of like, I'm not going to go to a conglomerate. I'm not going to because they think they might get lost or something, but that created opportunities for you to learn more. So what would be your sell to students who are sometimes like, I'm going to go to somewhere small, not somewhere big. I'm going to get lost in a big company like this. What was the true benefit for you?
Yeah, I think first thing I'd say, and I'm going to speak primarily from my experience working in consumer packaged goods. If you think about the businesses that are part of Unilever, most of them were started by a founder. Most of them were started by a person who had a vision, had a goal, had an idea, and then they came together. They got acquired or they joined up over time. And so the DNA of those businesses is always there. And so to go work for a big company, often you're working for a small company within a big company. And it's true. Big companies do have a certain level of bureaucracy, and that's just the way it is. That's true. And there are also positives, a big part of a big company: resources, the ability to move around, to your point. And I think probably most importantly is clarity about the skills that you want to gain. clarity about the impact that you want to have. And I would say that it doesn't necessarily mean you should go to a big company or a small company. But I think that clarity will give you the opportunity to be stronger in your decisions about what you will accept and what you won't accept in any business. And I have found that even at a big company like Unilever, the change has been incredible over the past 15 years. If you think about the number of businesses that Unilever has divested and acquired, has really reshaped the business. So our senior executive team has done, I think, really an outstanding job continuing to keep our core businesses healthy while reshaping the business in terms of either divestitures or acquisitions. So you never really know today. There's no one sure thing. You join a company and that company may not look the way it looks in a few years. And I find that really exciting.
Can you give us an example of one of the lateral moves that you made and what inspired and motivated you to make that move? Or, because sometimes we talk about social networks. Was it that someone saw an opportunity and told you it was right for you? Or you were seeking, what was your balance on those?
Sure. One pops out as you're asking the question. One popped out immediately. And I was in marketing. So I was in brand management. You get into kind of CPG brand management, at least when I was starting out. And that was a really big deal. And got in, and there was a management development program. One of the tenets of it was to move around and to get experience. And that was of interest to me. And I remember one of our vice presidents, the vice president of our unit, she said to me, she sat me down and she said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I said, What do you mean? I mean, it's going into sales. That's a great experience. She goes, "Your peers are going to pass you. They're going to move beyond, and you're going to be out there doing this other assignment. Are you cool with that?" And, to this day, that was really great advice, because I'm not sure really what her intent was, right? So I was this junior, I was kind of nobody in the business, and she was this, one of the most senior people running our business unit. And it doesn't actually matter why she said it to me, whether she really feared for me or she was just trying to give me a little bit of stern advice, like, don't go out to this assignment and then be wondering why some of your peers get promoted ahead of you. And I'm really glad I got that advice, and I'm glad I made that move. And there were plenty of times that I was in my sales assignment doing unglamorous work. And I thought to myself, man, did I go to school for this and whatnot? But all of it really paid off. And I think that that's important. I think that, the higher you go, in some ways, the fewer questions you can ask to a certain degree. And so I think that, getting promoted and advancing vertically in an organization or within your profession is great, titles and maybe more money or whatnot. But in fact, your ability to serve your company, your teammates, and your staff is strengthened definitely to the degree that you understand how your business or your unit or your expertise fits into the system. And for me, that's in hindsight, what has helped me is to have a better understanding. I haven't worked in procurement, but the time that I spend understanding how our procurement team and the professionals whose life work is in procurement has helped me understand their view of things. So that when I come at them with an idea or a thought or a challenge or a problem, empathy matters. Empathy matters within a business.
Mm-hmm. So the learning perspective. Now I thought you were going to say, and then when I became CEO, I called her and I said, you know what? I can go lateral and I can eventually be CEO. What are my peers doing? No, I'm just kidding. Tell me more about that moment, though. The moment when you knew you were going to be CEO.
Oh, it was an interesting moment where my boss at the time said, he called me up. When you get the call from your boss and it's like spontaneous, you're like, all right, this is either really good or really bad. And I need 10 minutes with you. So I get a quick call with him. And he said, all right, bad news is we're eliminating your job. And I was like, oh, I'm just getting good at it. I had been in a role for maybe a year and a half or so, and I was really loving my role. I was actually running the foods business for Unilever North America. And I have tremendous respect for my boss at the time. He's a bit of a mentor to me. And he said, but we don't want you to leave. There's a couple of other things. Let's take a look at your individual development plan. We call those IDPs, kind of where you write out what you want to do when you want to grow up in the short term, the medium term, and the long term. It's not rocket science. And this opportunity was coming open. And I thought about it I said, well, I chatted with him on a Friday, and there was a few other opportunities. And it just, I just remember thinking to myself, yeah, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. That's exactly what I'm supposed to be. Yeah, that was it. Then I went home and I told my wife, and she goes, that's it. Like, is it kind of like, hey, dummy, that's it. And so yeah, there, there it was. That was the moment.
There you go. And then, there was alignment. It's clear that there was alignment that made it easy to make this decision about being at Ben and Jerry's, partially because of some of the things you mentioned you value and they value, or the company had valued. So what did you decide 3 years ago? What values did you decide were going to matter to you in your leadership of the company?
Oh, boy, that's a big one. At different points in my career, and I don't think I'm unique in this regard, you feel more or less connected to your employer. Sometimes you may have a great boss. Sometimes, frankly, you may have a crappy boss or someone that you don't get along with. And in those kind of moments where things are going great versus those moments where things are not going great. And in fact, those moments where things weren't going great were, in hindsight, some of my most valuable moments. Let's say I had a coworker who we just didn't get along at all. Or let's say I had a boss that just was blocking my career. Those things were painful and difficult at the time. It made me question, should I stay part of this company? Should I stick it out? What's the right thing to do here? And whether I stayed or I left is not the point. The fact that I've learned more from my difficult experiences, much, much more than my successes or my victories. And I know that may sound pretty basic, but adversity is a very powerful teacher. And success is great. But then after success, you kind of move on. Okay, great, we did that thing, and now we need to move on. And so I would encourage people to really move towards adversity. And when you're in moments of adversity, give yourself the gift of asking, why is this challenging? What can I learn from this moment? How can I take what could be considered a very painful or difficult situation and reinvest that into my future? It's by reinvesting those learnings that I've been able to, I think, move forward, and then learn how to help other people move through adversity. A lot of organizational work. We do our best work usually in teams. Most of the biggest accomplishments we have in our lives and our careers, we don't do by ourselves. We do with others. And so moving through adversity is a natural part of accomplishing things through relationships with other people. So I really encourage people to, if you're having something difficult, don't run away from it, run towards it.
Can you give us an example of one that was your like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe we made it through that one?
Oh gosh. Well, there was one time where we wanted to change the formulation of some of our products that was not going over very well with senior management. And without getting into all the details, suffice it to say that we were trying to make a real nutritional improvement to some of our products. And we knew that we could do it. We had the technology. Some of the nutritionist community were not agreed as to the right way to do it, but we found a path forward we decided on. The problem was that not everybody in management was sold on this. Like, wow, is it really that big of a deal? And the team and I felt, hell yeah, this is a big deal. And it came also with a price tag. That was the second barrier. Yeah, but this is really expensive. Is it going to matter to our consumers? Is it going to matter? And a lot of our job in business is to make stuff matter. If you know it's right, if you know it's the right thing to do, particularly when it comes to things like nutrition or health or safety, you got to do it. You got to do it. And it often will cost more. It's our job to actually to make those calls. And I was scared, I'll be honest with you. I mean, one of the most senior people in the business unit I had known going into it was like total thumbs down on this idea. It had been brought up before. And I just made up my mind that it was critical for the business that we had to do this. And frankly, I created a little bit of an internal conspiracy. I think you have to conspire in organizations. And I say that openly. I don't say that with any sort of kind of hidden agenda. Big organizations have a certain momentum. Yeah. Some of that momentum is good. Some of that momentum repeats things from the past that are not helpful for the organization, the business, the brands to move forward. And so sometimes you have to conspire with other like-minded folks within the organization to get stuff done. And so I found a group of like-minded people and they said, well, can we do this? And a lot of my job became saying, we're going to do this. We're going to do this.
I love that, forming a coalition. And if that happened to be vegan ice cream, my niece thanks you with her many allergies. It's so sad to go to Ben and Jerry's and we're like this and this. And it's like, oh, we'll get you something later. But now she always gets something for herself too.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that.
Now, you have been CEO at a time where a lot is going on in the world. The world is very different now, or a certain attention is given to things differently now than when you started as CEO. Be it the dual pandemics of COVID-19 and racial injustice. So like, what does it mean? What does being ethical, an ethical organization, an ethical leader kind of mean to you in this context? Now, you alluded to this a little bit in your speech, but I'm curious to hear a bit more.
It's a huge question. I'll try to take a couple bites at it and guide me if it's working for you. When I was more junior, we talked about business ethics. It was primarily things like how not to get arrested, how not to do things that were, unethical and illegal. And that gradually expanded into more things around fairness in the workplace. But I don't know that when I was more junior that they went as far as I now see it today. So now I would ask the question, if something is unjust, can it be ethical? Mm. So this conversation about business ethics is sometimes kind of talked about over here. And then maybe a business or the senior executives or maybe the foundation or the social mission people within a business, they're talking about a justice issue over here, racial justice, LGBTQ rights, marriage equality, justice for the environment or for animal rights. Well, that's a false narrative. Let's just kind of call it out what it is that business ethics is related directly to justice. And the second thing I'd say is that there is, I think, a very misguided idea that business should not be engaged with its own values. Listen, businesses are groups of people that have come together to do something together. All people have values. It is completely irrational to me that we as humans would be asked to leave our values at home and so somehow come to the workplace and do something else. And I would argue that actually businesses for decades actually do express their values. They do it usually through campaign contributions or lobbying, and it's kind of quiet and it's behind the scenes. And as I mentioned before, we're in a moment of hyper transparency, and there's no going back. And so what you do is directly related to who you are and how you will be seen by a number of constituencies, your consumers, your own employees. And so bringing your values to work is not only okay, it is essential. It doesn't mean everybody needs to agree. It certainly doesn't mean everybody needs to kind of be of the same mind. I mean, we don't agree around my dinner table. Why would I ever expect that people are going to agree when you put hundreds, if not thousands of people together in a business? But a business has to make its values clear. And then that's also an intersection of my first point around business ethics. Business ethics is not avoiding doing bad stuff or getting caught doing bad stuff. Business ethics is driving ethical behavior. Yep. And where do ethics come from? They're usually linked to values, the business's values, maybe the founder's values. For us at Ben & Jerry's, we're really lucky that we have the values from Jerry and Ben that stick with us today. But it can be any business. And a business that hasn't done that work to find its values, that's okay too. That's work that those leaders and the team can do it now. And so I think for me, there's a very direct connection. Now, when earlier in my career, if you'd asked me the same question, I would be like, oh, yeah, business ethics. It's like this module I took to, not get in trouble and not do bad things.
Yeah. Now, what are your values with regard to racial justice, and how have you tried to address those, particularly as a white male CEO in the world?
I'd say I love this question. I'd say two things. In my remit as CEO of Ben & Jerry's, I am charged with advancing our three-part mission: our product mission, our economic mission, and our social mission. And those sit underneath this concept that we call linked prosperity. A vision of linked prosperity. The reality is that for decades, most of that prosperity has actually gone to white dudes like me. And then so what's interesting, if you think about it, is that business people are in the business of creating money, growing things, creating economic opportunity and economic expansion. And one of the biggest byproducts of racism and structural racism in this country and around the world is blocking people from opportunity, blocking people from fairness, blocking people from equity, and of course, blocking people from economic self-empowerment. And so for me, being a business person, there is a very direct link. And I didn't know this for most of my life. Most of my life as a white male of privilege, I was like, all right, well, I got my own problems and I had to work hard and I had to do this and all that other stuff, these kind of white narratives that we hear. And it started to really dawn on me that there was another narrative out there. And what I had to do as a white person, so my lived experience as a white male with a whole lot of privilege, relatively speaking, is to acknowledge that and to understand it. And that's a process I'm going through. So I may use some terms that sound fancy or that sound like I'm knowledgeable, but the reality is I'm not, and that's okay. What's not okay is to be someone who has privilege and just pretend you don't. That is what I would say is not acceptable. And so for me, the values that I try to bring forward are as my lived experience as a white man of privilege, particularly somebody who has a lot of organizational authority. I'm privileged to have the organizational authority that I have. How am I using that? So I don't try to pretend that I've got somebody else's lived experience. What I try to do is to get right up close to, okay, what's the issue? What can I do? How can I leverage both my own actions, the direct things that I can do, things that I can impact, and unlocking the energy of my organization and team to actually understand and take more action. So for people, out there who are white, I would suggest that if you haven't been looking into some of these topics, do it. It is already dominating the business world. I mean, you just literally cannot, if you're reading any business press, if you're connected at all, the topic around ethics, things like voting rights. And what does that mean? What's going on in Georgia? What's going on with the 361 pieces of legislation? I'm not just talking like as if I'm kind of just some social liberal waving my arms up here in Vermont. These are directly related to your employees, your consumers, your customers. And so to not get engaged in these and to understand where your values sit in that space doesn't mean you have to agree or not agree. But businesses that don't make their values clear, I think are hiding them.
Yep. It's clear that you're a lifelong learner because you've said you've said a lot about learning, including in this domain. Not to trivialize this to reduce anything to a book or something, but what is something you have read in the past 6 months that really changed your thinking, that has made you say everyone needs to read this or do this or try this to get greater insight into the dynamics underlying systemic racism and racial injustice?
Well, I'm wondering which one do I choose?
Share a couple then. Darn it, share a couple.
How to Be an Anti-Racist by Dr. Ibram Kendi. Get that book. If you haven't read that book, go read that book. Go listen to that book. And it's incredibly powerful, straightforward, easy to read. Conceptually, for a lot of white people, it may be difficult to read because you're going to learn a bunch of stuff that you're like, I can't believe that. How's that even possible? And I think books like that, education pieces like that I seek out, or people guide me on. I got a lot of people coaching me. I'm an avid learner, and I actively seek out input from others. And let yourself be shocked and get over it.
There's also the COVID pandemic, though, too. And lots of people gained the COVID-15 eating Ben & Jerry's ice cream. One question for you is, what's your favorite flavor? Second question for you, you have clearly as a company done well during this challenging time for others. How are you addressing that disparity or whatever?
Sure. Let me tackle the second one first because it's a bigger topic, if I could. If I go back maybe 16 months ago, 17 months ago, we've got operations in Asia. And I remember having initial conversations with my team, our Asian team, and we had a bit of a heads up, and to say, this is going to go a bad way. And so I was able to scramble my team together and to quickly put together a team to basically mobilize how we wanted to basically keep our family safe, keep the team safe and healthy. And we had no idea what the heck was going to happen. I mean, remind people, you go back 12 months, 13 months, 11 months, we had no idea really what we were dealing with. And we had no idea what this was going to mean for our families, our communities, all of our workers. And so what I learned through that process in a bigger way than I had ever in my career beforehand was the reality that compassion is a business imperative. Compassion, absolutely central to our business. And I think if you had asked me a few years ago, the idea about compassion and business being brought together in the same sentence, I'd be like, wow, maybe that's a poster outside of the Human Resources Department or something like that. And what I have learned in a big way is that if you don't take care of yourself and you don't take care of each other and your teammates take care of each other, forget about that. It doesn't matter what business you're in. And I know that's such a simple thought, but so many businesses got it wrong. So many businesses did not take care of their people. And I'm not going to say that we did it perfectly, but prioritizing our people, health and safety first, and this is true not only for Ben & Jerry's, but for Unilever broadly, has really been a huge part of all of our experiences over the past year. And after people, were able to get a hold of the necessities that they were looking for, then secondary things like ice cream did grow sales. Now that's what I would say is that's for our packaged business, the pints that people know that might be bought e-com or in your local store, your supermarket. Also, we've got a whole scoop shop business that has been hurt tremendously by all of this. We're in the restaurant business basically, and that we started as a scoop shop company about 5 minutes up the road from where I am right now in Burlington, Vermont. And all of our scoop shops have been hurt badly by this. So working closely with our scoop shop, our franchisees, who are such an incredible part of what Ben & Jerry's was as it was founded and what it is today. So we actually had a bit of a tale of two cities where the total business has done well, thanks to the work of my team everywhere. And even the parts that were struggling, people came together in new, innovative ways to support each other. And I don't know if I answered your question on the second part.
You absolutely did. What you didn't answer was, what's your favorite flavor?
Oh, it is so tough. I'm not going to pretend that it's not tough. And every year it gets tougher because our flavor gurus and our teams keep coming up with all kinds of crazy, wild flavors. I'm a bit of a classic. I love fish food. My wife and I really love fish food. We started loving New York Super Fudge Chunk when we met back in college. And then at some point along the way, we somehow stumbled into fish food. And I have to say, it's kind of a standby. So I'm always trying new flavors and kind of rotating through different things in the freezer. But fish food's a bit of a comfort for me.
Well, it is comfort food for my colleague, Dan Wong, who also loves it, as you know. So how do you ensure that you keep innovating from the inside, get these amazing flavors, keep on taking things to the next level, given how many other ice cream scoop shops and everything are popping up these days?
That's you're talking about the special sauce of Ben & Jerry's right there. I think, Ben & Jerry were they are two very unreasonable guys. They had this crazy idea that they, as two guys that didn't really have any business experience, went to Burlington, Vermont, one of the coldest towns in the US, and said, let's start an ice cream business. So that spirit of unreasonableness is really kind of in the ethos of what we do and what we try to stoke. We want to kind of stoke that insurgent mindset that Jerry and Ben have brought to us and left with us. And that it directly informs our product philosophy. And so we have chefs on staff and flavor gurus, and also people who are really technical wizards. If you think about a pint of Ben & Jerry's, a lot of that stuff doesn't want to go together. When they came up with the idea, actually a fan suggested the idea of putting cookie dough into ice cream. We didn't have machines that could do it. So literally this idea of letting creativity and what would surprise and amaze our fans. We like to say, my CMO likes to remind me of this great phrase, we try to love our fans more than they love us. And so this idea of what, dreaming and imagining and using your creativity about what would be wild and awesome to our fans. And sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. We may create a flavor that we liked and liked it on the bench, and our flavor gurus liked it, but maybe didn't become a commercial success. And those end up in our flavor graveyard. We actually have an online flavor graveyard, where you can see every flavor we've ever launched and retired. We try to celebrate we wouldn't call them failures, but our things that didn't work out. And if you visit our factory in Waterbury, Vermont, you can actually visit the flavor graveyard up on the hill, where we've got a selection of those flavors. So I think this spirit of, being willing to fail, trying stuff, and giving people a level of freedom. I will say that there's also a tremendous amount of rigor that goes into the work that the team does. I don't know, people may not have that in their mind's eye about Ben & Jerry's approach, but there's a tremendous amount of consumer and market insights, a lot of diligent market research, consumer research, qualitative, quantitative, understanding where the market's going, understanding where culinary trends are going, conducting trend treks. There's a tremendous amount of diligence and rigor that goes into supporting the business of making euphoric ice cream.
So bringing joy means bringing human capital to help bring joy, but it's also not cheap to do. And also to operate ethically is not cheap either. So curious about the trade-offs between, as you think about CSR and ESG and all those things, and doing things in a sustainable way, doing things ethically. How do you figure out what trade-offs to make?
Yeah, it's a great question. And actually I get asked that a fair amount is, profits, as I mentioned before, profits or, great products, or how do you handle that? To a certain degree, being in business is the business of managing pricing. It's not a surprise, shouldn't be a shock to everybody, that at the end of the day, commerce is enabled because we part with our money, right? Or if you're in a barter system, you part with something in order to get something else. And so, commerce depends on people being willing to pay money for what you do. And sometimes there's a race to the bottom, lots of promotion or cost cutting. Ben & Jerry's is kind of in the other business, which is we're kind of trying to find a race to the top and raising the bar of what a super premium ice cream can be. I can give you thousands of examples of where we can make it cheaper. I can give tons of examples of we can have a cheaper ingredient, a cheaper way of making our ice cream. That doesn't make it better. Certainly we want to make sure that we're always making ice cream that our fans want. But the reality is our fans understand that good stuff does cost a little bit more. And Ben & Jerry's is not something you should necessarily eat every single day. You need to eat it with a bit of moderation. But this idea of managing pricing and the price value relationship, to a certain degree, you could argue that a marketer's job is lowering price elasticity. At the end of the day, our people, your family, your friends, people in your community, are they willing to pay a little bit more for that thing or that service that you offer? Yep. And if you're able to do that, that's good business. It doesn't mean that there isn't value in having price discounts or having a low cost option. But at the end of the day, the reality is a lot of us are willing to pay a little bit more, not only for great products, but increasingly awareness about the social justice aspect. Market pricing is often one of the things that's wrong about capitalism. Just because I can get it cheaper doesn't mean that's good for the farmer or the farm worker or the animal or the soil that was necessary for me to then make great ice cream, or for us to make great ice cream out of it. So again, market pricing is something that should be viewed with a bit of skepticism. I like to talk about justice pricing or dignity pricing. But this idea that if people were all contributing to what's the real cost of something, this idea of, I believe, and I like to share with other people, that externalities are a dangerous fiction in the business world. And this goes back to this idea of business ethics. If there's something wrong about your supply chain, if there's something wrong and unsustainable about how or what you're making, it's just a matter of time before the people that you serve will find out about it. It's just a matter of time before your employees will say, I'm not proud of working on that. I'm not proud about that. And I'm going to go do something else somewhere else. So whether it's your employees, your talent, attracting, retaining talent, or your consumers, or your customers, if there's something wrong, go towards it. deal with it, address it. Don't just have a PR campaign to smooth it over. Deal with it and tell your fans about it. We at Ben and Jerry's, we make screw ups all the time, and every year we pay to be independently audited on our progress on our social and environmental work. We fall short all the time, and we want our fans to know that. We want them to know where we have failed to meet our ambitions, and here's what we're going to do as a result.
I love you. Dropped some nuggets in terms of justice pricing, dignity pricing, externalities are a dangerous fiction. Everyone who's watching will kill me if I don't get to Q&A, because there's some amazing questions for you. So I'm going to start with one from Jennifer Merchant. Hi, Jennifer. It's good to see you here in spirit, although we can't see you. Matthew, could you share one aspect of your personality that is not obvious on your resume, but plays a significant role in your leadership style? Ooh, good one.
Boy, that's my personality?
Yeah, an aspect of your personality that's not obvious on your resume, but plays a significant role in your leadership style.
Yeah, boy, that's a great question. A well thought through question. It's dumped me. I got to think about that one a little bit.
Smart folks watching.
You got some smart people here. I'm not surprised. I thrive on working with other people. And that doesn't necessarily jump out from my CV. My CV is a little out of date, I got to confess. But I thrive on working with other people. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I believe that many hands make light work. If you want to move a mountain, get a lot of shovels. And at the end of the day, building trust with other people is essential to me. It's and people that I haven't trusted in my life usually play a negative role. Either I didn't work well with them, or I didn't want to work with them, or I failed to build trust with somebody else. I may have failed to build trust with somebody, or I did something that hurt trust. So if you want to do big things in life, I think I'm a firm believer that my pursuit of building trust, I often fail. My pursuit of trying to build trust with other people is essential to the stuff that's on my resume.
All right, from Sasha Schechter. Can you talk about the business community's response to Georgia's voting laws? Ben & Jerry's has always been on the right side of social responsibility in business. How can we hold companies and employees accountable for social responsibility?
Oh, boy. Listen, I think that one of the beautiful things about business is that, as I said before, the minute your consumers, the people you serve, don't like what you're doing, think it's bad, you may almost instantaneously be out of business. And if I think about the last 30 years I've been in business, we've never seen the pace of big businesses being kind of flipped over, or an upstart business coming in and disrupting the market, whatever term you want to use from a lot of business books, but it's true. And so that pace of change is fairly extreme. And I think that I think businesses that aren't mindful of how things that seem very small can actually grow exponentially. And so I've learned to value the power of weak signals. And a lot of business leadership, kind of your gut building and your intuition building as a business person, is actually in seeking out and finding the weak signals. Because if it's a big signal, like all of a sudden one of your big customers cancels your promotion, or all of a sudden you have a recall on your products, that's a giant signal and you can't avoid it. But in fact, looking ahead is our job as business people, all of us, regardless of our level within the organization. And so this idea of looking for weak signals and understanding the characteristics of those weak signals that may grow exponentially, I mean, just the very definition of exponential growth, that's been talked a lot about over the past decade, is important, because everything that becomes exponential starts really small. And so if you wait till it's big, it's either going to run you over, or somebody else is going to capture that opportunity. So it's not only about kind of doing the obvious. Sometimes it's doing the stuff that's not so obvious and finding a way to convince those within your organization that this weak signal is different than the others.
You know, this makes me smile partially because for all of you lead students out there, which is all of you, we talk about subconscious pattern detection. That's a piece of what he means when he's talking about a weak signal. Just FYI. Matthew, we have a little bit of a special guest who has a question for you, who is going to come on the screen very short. Oh, who's that there? Is that you, Dean McGlaris?
Thank you for letting me crash your Q&A, Modupe. I've been enjoying the event for the last 40 minutes. This has been an incredible discussion. And let me primarily start by congratulating you, Matthew. We're honored to have you be an awardee of our prestigious Botwinick Prize, which has been 30 years at the school, and it always recognizes exemplary leaders, and you are no exception. Your journey is really exciting. I like the story of you scooping up ice cream in a summer job many, many years ago, and now being in a position of running one of the most beloved ice cream brands in the world. This is a tremendous journey and an interesting one. I have a funny question in a bit, but I want to make a quick comment and a plug for the future. Your leadership, the things you've been saying, and actually the principles that Ben & Jerry's really stands for, very sharply embodied two priorities of the school. One that has to do with sustainability and climate, and the other one that has to do exactly with that interplay between businesses and how businesses should be thinking about societal problems, and what you called purpose-driven organizations earlier in this conversation. We've done quite a bit in this area here at the school over the years, but we have so much more that we need to be doing. And we hope that we'll keep you in our orbit as we're doing more of these things. So we'll keep you coming back, both to talk to our students, but also to sort of learn from what you've done, but also what Ben & Jerry's is doing. Because it is important in your comments about that you were making earlier, it is truly important to recognize examples where organizations do well by doing good. Okay, that these two things are not sort of fighting each other, but actually can work together. And I think you've been sort of discussing that and pushing that idea for the last 40 minutes, and I think it's crucial that we learn more about it.
Thank you. I'd be really honored to continue to stay connected, and thank you very much. It's a real treat to be here with you, your staff, and your faculty and students.
So let me ask you two quick questions. One is kind of semi-serious. The other one is more funny. But you talked about the ingenuity and rigor of innovating ice cream flavors. And out of curiosity, oftentimes when you go to the store and you see the Ben & Jerry new flavors, you're like, who thought of like putting this type of ingredient into an ice cream? It's always like the most insane combination. And I'm curious whether you start by identifying this sort of ethically sourced, unique, strange, innovative ingredient, and then building something around it? Or do you actually start with the vision of the flavor and then you sort of go about figuring out things? How does it work?
That is a great question. I actually love that question. And we could probably have a whole session where I bring in my flavor gurus. We talk just about that. What I would say is, yes. And in fact, giving the team the freedom to approach concept development and new flavor development from multiple avenues is part of the Ben & Jerry's magic. So yes, sometimes we start with an idea and we fulfill it. Sometimes it may come from a culinary trend. Sometimes it actually maybe come from a social mission trend. So we've got this idea for a flavor that's linked to, let's say, the environment. What might be in that flavor? Why would that flavor fit the concept? And so being able to come at an idea where our fan is always at the center, we want to surprise them and wow them with a flavor, and then really work outward from that. So in fact, the paths kind of go out away from the fan. Sometimes they go through a culinary route. Sometimes they go through an ingredient route. Sometimes they go through another trend route, or a pure concept route, like a social mission pint or a partnership pint. And so actually it's the freedom of giving folks the opportunity to go at it different ways that really, I think, sparks this the kind of a virtuous approach to creativity.
I mean, the names for sure always surprise you know, you have to always have to take a double take when you're looking at the Ben and Jerry sort of new ice cream at the freezer of your local supermarket. So if we needed to come up with a new ice cream flavor for our school, Columbia Business School, well, you know, I've been given some ideas, and I have to say none of them live up to the expectation of a Ben and Jerry flavor. We have leadership a la mode at the very center of delicious, which really maps a little bit some of the things we've been saying. Arrow ice cream that brings together your business school and business principles. MBA remix, Columbia chocolate chunk. I have to say, everybody has shared their favorite flavor. When I moved to this country a long time ago, I got hooked into Chunky Monkey ice cream. I don't know why. It was so new and different. You could never find it back home. So give us your pick.
It's all right. So first of all, I'd say that weird is good. So from the Ben and Jerry's lens, if it's a little weird, it's pretty good. If it makes too much sense, maybe that's not too. If it's too descriptive, and if it's something our competitors could easily do, so that's why Chunky Monkey. I love you use that as an example. It's just a kooky name, but it tells you a bit of what you're going to get at. So I like the Columbia chocolate chunk or chocolate crunch. I would encourage the innovators of that name to bring something wacky to it, bring something unexpected that makes people smile. You see a flavor name, you go into the ice cream aisle, and there's a lot of flavors that describe what it is. That's fine. That's the ice cream I grew up with. Ben and Jerry's, we want people to smile. We want the people to feel a bit of joy, even when they're looking at it, as you described, standing there deciding what to buy.
Terrific. Okay. Thank you very much. We all smile when we read the ice cream label, okay? And we all have to read again because we don't understand exactly what is going on. So it's fantastic. Congratulations. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you again on campus, okay?
Myself also. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, Matt. So you said a little bit of the secret sauce in terms of how we get to flavors. We have a question here from Anonymous. Hey, Anonymous, we got your question. You're not getting ice cream, Anonymous. You're known at Unilever for being a phenomenal leader, especially when it comes to developing people and teams. What's your secret sauce to building great teams?
Oh, man. First of all, thank you to whoever asked that question. That is a tremendously generous comment. Thank you. I at the risk of repeating myself, I'll kind of go back to this idea of many hands make light work. And what I have found, and I've learned the hard way, is this idea: you're either building trust or you're destroying trust. That may sound a little harsh, but at the end of the day, neutrality is a little bit of a mirage. And we're taking actions all the time. And we as humans are forming opinions and value judgments in every interaction. And so I'd say that building trust. The second thing that I haven't spoken about, but I'll add here, is the idea that your intent matters. Your intent matters. And I believe firmly that all those around me, all of us, we can pick up on each other's intent. And if someone's intent doesn't rub me the right way, it doesn't sit with me. If my intent, if I say one thing, really I'm meaning something else, we pick up on that. And you may be a good poker player, but that catches up with you. And so I think this idea of being clear about your intent, I believe firmly that clarity is power. And the clearer we can be, the more power we can bring to the things that we want to do in our lives, in our families, in our world. And your intent matters. And so if your intent is to, I don't know, screw someone out of a deal, that's either going to go badly or it's a matter of time before it catches up with you. And so it's a little bit of karma. So I'm talking about something that could be perceived as kind of a karmic value. But I think at the end of the day, people, in order to trust you, they need to have an understanding of what your intent is. And often difficulties and challenges between people and teams simply because they don't actually know where the other person's coming from, what their intent is. And so they're perceiving their words, their questions, maybe as interrogations, maybe as things that are destroying trust. And so for me in working with teams, what I have learned, and a number of occasions I've learned it the hard way, is that I need to make sure everyone around me understands exactly what the heck my intent is, why I'm doing what I'm doing, how I want to help them, and ask them, how do I help you? And this idea of how do I help you? And we talk about servant leadership. Lots of books have been written about servant leadership, and it's a bit of a kind of a maybe an overused term. But how can I help you is a very, very powerful statement. It says, I actually care about you. Yeah. It says, I care about working with you. It says, my success depends on me helping you succeed. And it also says you're listening, right? And right there is, I believe, the adage, 2 ears, 1 mouth. But a lot of times in business, we got, as if we had 3 mouths and half an ear. So I'd say is that asking people how you can help them. One other thing is that questions are the doorway, the gateway to creativity. When we ask each other, when we ask ourselves, how do I do this? Why is this like this? What's so great about this? And how do we replicate it? Or what sucks about this? And how do we deal with it? Those are questions that we know unlock our own creativity. And they apply to teams as well. So questions and showing people that I want to help them is the fastest way to get people to trust you and to see what you're all about. So I would really encourage that space and if I could do the earlier part of my career again, I'd probably do a lot more of that. I probably wouldn't work harder. I would probably spend a lot more time building trust, asking others how I can help and serve them.
Something we always talk about with CEOs is what their vision is down the line, succession, all that. One question, and one of our final questions, or almost final question, is what do you hope Ben & Jerry's will look like 10 years down the line?
Boy, well, it's both an easy question and a difficult question. The easy part of the question is that what we've been doing, we turned 43 years old in April this month. So 43 years ago, Jerry and Ben, refurbished an old gas station up the road here and started selling ice cream and other snacks and treats. And what I hope is that we can keep driving that vision, so living up to this idea of linked prosperity. Linked prosperity is a very high bar, and we may never get there. But the idea that we talk about Ben & Jerry's as an aspiring social justice company. We don't pat ourselves on the back. We don't talk about how great we are or any of that mumbo jumbo. What we talk about is we're an aspiring social justice company. And this idea of linked prosperity and justice itself is often a journey, not necessarily a destination. And so what I hope is that Ben & Jerry's continues to do the work that it's been doing. The second part of the answer is that I hope it does it in ways and at a scale that the people today could never possibly imagine.
Oh, and then you're just going to stop there? You're not going to tell us what that looks like or anything? Just unimaginable? It's unimaginable. Exactly. Okay.
That's the thing.
I was like, oh, I can't imagine. We all look forward to hearing or seeing what that unimaginable thing looks like. Now, a couple of lightning round questions for you. I always like to do a little lightning round. Cats or dogs? Which do you prefer?
Can't choose. We have both. And they get along.
And just wouldn't be right. It's like saying which child.
Which child do I love? That's that. Nope.
Every parent knows they have a favorite child, but that's okay. Your cat and your dog.
They could be watching right now. I can't
be watching. You're right. They're probably watching. Summer or winter?
Winter.
Texting or talking?
Talking.
This goes to the animals question. The ability to speak every language or the ability to have conversations with animals?
Oh, the latter, animals. I'd give anything to have a conversation with animals.
What's one thing you'd want to ask that you want to hear a response to?
How do we actually get it right as humans in terms of our treatment of animals?
How can we treat you better? Ooh, that's good. Giving presents or getting presents?
All giving.
Cake or cookies?
Cake.
Climbing a mountain or scuba diving?
Ooh, tough. Probably climbing a mountain. I find a bit more awe in the vistas at the top of a mountain than when I'm scuba diving.
This used to be beer or wine, but I changed it to gin or juice.
I go with gin.
Early bird or night owl?
Oh, night owl.
Vermont or Massachusetts?
No! Did you have to ask this question?
Had to.
I'm gonna say Vermont. So all my Massachusetts friends don't hate me. Even as a kid, we came to Vermont a lot, and I fell in love with it when I was a kid growing up in Western Mass. So I love my Massachusetts, and I gotta say I love Vermont maybe a little bit more. I'm sorry, folks. That's the truth.
It's that maple syrup. It's that maple syrup. The Tonight Dough or American Dream? Americone Dream. Hello, Americone.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm tracking with you. Tonight dough. I'm a little bit more partial to the dough than I am the chocolate covered pretzel waffle chips.
Well, I think that's a great way to end this gathering. And of course, want to thank you for spending time with us. Thank the Botwinick Wolfenson family for your support. Big congratulations to you. And thank you for bringing us so much joy tonight, truly. And to the audience members who were here, wouldn't be what this gathering was without you and your questions and your time and attention. So thank you, Matthew, and congratulations.
Thank you, Madupe. Thank you very much. Greatly. Very grateful to be here with you.
Same to here in terms of having you. All right, everyone, have a wonderful night, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. And this is a PPIL event. So thank you again, all of you, for joining tonight. Take care.